Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here at NAB 2025, and this is Ramy Katrib from DigitalFilm Tree. Hello, Ramy.
It's so good to see you again.
Same here.
I think it's been 2 years since I was last here.
Really? So
Yeah.
were you not here last year because you were busy or just?
Busy. Yeah.
Which is great. So tell people what DigitalFilm Tree is and some of you work on very cool stuff. So let them know what you do.
We've been fortunate. So before I knew it, we've been around for 25 years. So we hit that milestone. Historically, we were always like a tech-forward post house. That's our public persona. But DigitalFilm Tree is essentially like a research and development type of company. We're always noodling with emerging technologies. We build things. We've always created software, worked with other people's software that is up and coming, especially when it's new. When we find a solution, we tend to partner with that solution, not just being a user, as it were, but help them essentially refine their products. Whether it's Signient or I just saw Strata and all the progress
Michael
it's made.
Cioni, yeah.
Absolutely, like that's especially the nimble efforts, because right now the industry is obviously going through so much challenge. Agility is everything, right? Whether you're a vendor like us or a product or some kind of combined solution, agility is really key. Not only to surviving in this current landscape, but essentially even taking advantage of it,
Right. Well, that's pretty interesting. And you guys, I mean, Ted Lasso shrinking. You've been really lucky, but the industry it's been difficult. And
Yeah.
where we're talking, it's almost like being punched repeatedly. It was COVID. It was the strikes. It was the fires.
Yeah.
It's tariffs. It's so how are you guys surviving, and how are you adapting to the new world?
One of the things that's becoming ever more routine is how we are partnering with independent artists that are not necessarily working at a traditional brick and mortar. It started happening 2 years ago where you would meet that oddball that doesn't want to work for a company, whether it's a VFX artist or even colorist. And you would engage with them, and then you would find out that oftentimes they were very technical, very creative, very industrious. So now that's becoming routine. We have now 3 projects where the colorist is not at DigitalFilm Tree, is either independent or has their own company. So I think that one of the outcomes of essentially the regression in production is, especially with all the layoffs and companies that have gone out of business, is the comeback of the kind of freelance culture, right? I'm an independent artist. I have my own relationships, but oftentimes independent artists can't work on big projects because they might not have the proper infrastructure, networking, security, things like TPN certification. It was interesting. One of my neighbors, we were both affected by the fire. I got to know him very well during the fires. He's an independent artist who does graphical art and poster design. He said someone came to his home to audit his office. Back in the day, you couldn't even convince like an employer that you're gonna work from home. Now it's the routine.
Right.
So the fact that an auditor came to look at his office
And make sure it was like legitimately an office.
But it's his home, and that's now the trend in my view. I think we have a big role to play in back-ending, supporting independent artists all around the world, because infrastructure is hard to come by. It's not like something that you flip a switch and you check off a couple things. It involves, petabytes of storage, performance storage, huge internet connectivity, pushing camera raw files all around the world. And that includes Vancouver. We started an office in Vancouver, so that was kind of the gateway drug because I love Vancouver. But now, obviously, studios are chasing the tax incentive. the thing that glues all this together for us is GeoPost, which is essentially a separate company that I started a long time ago that isn't concerned with infrastructure and data services, innovation in our industry. So GeoPost actually supports Digital Film Tree and supports other independent artists and other companies for that matter.
So what are you offering them? Like, they come to GeoPost for what?
Let's say you're a VFX artist and you are in proximity to work, but you need more resources and infrastructure or even collaborators. You're able to just plug in and partner with us as if you are within DFT. So our network essentially is extended to your location wherever you are in the world. So instantly you're grandfathered into our security policies, our security infrastructure. And as a result, those artists are now able to work on bigger projects and to do it securely and efficiently. If you're a colorist, essentially same idea. Let's say you don't have a panel or all the resources, but there's a project that might either be coming from Digital Film Tree or from the artist, then we supply them everything they need. And they can work from home, or if the project is in New York, for example, we have partner companies like Goldcrest, so they can work from the Goldcrest office. And the whole idea is, if you have a budget and you're working on a project, that budget is transparent. It's not like rocket science. So you negotiate. This is the color budget, this is the VFX budget, and you essentially split it up. And then everyone is benefiting based on the budget, which is a different model than what's happened over the last, several years, where, the salaries for colorists sometimes are beyond the color budget. So when production regressed, that kind of affected that business model rather profoundly.
Sure.
So I think there's going to be, over time, a normalization where everyone has to adjust to the downward pressures on budgets getting smaller.
And this is how you see it going, because we were talking before about constriction of the industry. Mm-hmm. So you think more and more it will lead to independent artists dialing into the infrastructure that you offer, others offer.
Yeah, and like-minded, oftentimes independently owned companies that are not, back-ended by investors per se, but like mom and pop efforts, or the boutique, the comeback of the boutique. Independent companies are able to pivot. They don't have to wait for a decision from some overlord that's governing them.
Well, that's why 25 years in, you're able to, through COVID, because I remember through COVID, you changed your path a little bit just to keep going in virtual production and doing stuff like that. So what can we expect?
Innovating our way out of this current circumstance. I think everyone has to become ever more efficient. The notion of centralizing your camera material, your camera raw, that alone drives up production efficiency measurably. And it's still not the norm. So we still have to conquer that across the production world in all regions. That's one of the goals of GeoPost. You centralize the camera raw. You make it easy for people to access the files they need quickly, securely, and instead of files being duplicated and on drives and LTOs, which are fine, you just have a centralization, and then everyone grabs the files they need, and that becomes the routine, which currently is not the routine for worldwide production. So contributing to that outcome on every project we work on, even projects that we're not doing the post on, just dealing with the data is really our future. It's all about the data, maybe.
It's amazing. It seems like you've kind of thought this out, and you guys are doing well. Considering.
We still have our core team. We have 3 shifts. The non-technical aspect of Digital Film Tree is everyone is constantly training and learning. Um, it's the era of the generalist, you know.
Yeah.
We cross-train all our teams, whether it's visual effects, dailies, online, color, mostly just based on this intuition of surviving. So if you're a specialist, for example, but there's not as much work as there used to be, that's a tough spot because you just do that one slice. If you're a generalist and you can take a shot from beginning to end, that's really helpful. And to do it well, that's the other thing is cross-trained interdisciplinary team members. So when we meet someone who's independent, who's like that, instant attraction. It's like chemical. And then it's easy to work with them because they're wired that way as well, right? And then you were talking about the influencer culture.
Yeah.
The influencer culture can use any tool. They can start with one tool one week and next week find another tool.
Yep.
And there's no baggage. They're like they just pivot, right? And that's kind of, I mean, consider a company that's been around for 25 years that can pivot like an influencer who has no background in media and entertainment, right? Similar ethics, similar approaches. Oftentimes, if you've done something for a long time, you're just beholden to what you've learned, and it's hard to pivot.
Yeah.
You know, from one tool to the next. I mean, that's kind of like shocking to go from one tool. Now it's like, yeah, you have to pivot. You can hardly keep up with all the, machine learning, AI tools that are at minimum helpful, right? Just to kind of make your process a bit more automated, more efficient. Obviously, the studio system is concerned with AI, especially if their IP is pointed to some public cloud. They want to kind of have governance. That's why the other role of GeoPost is making everything private. So you can have a playground of machine learning and AI tools, but it's local, it's private. It's not pointed to a public cloud. There's no other party that is touching your IP. So that's kind of a big thing right now for the studios. Even their contracts reflect that.
Really?
Like, thou shalt not have our IP be on some public anything, because a lot of the AI companies are essentially mining, taking advantage of IP that is available to them, whether legally or illegally.
Before I let you go, what would you say to the people that are, the producers and stuff that haven't worked in a while and they're thinking about leaving the industry?
I think taking advantage of this time to learn. I was with a producer last night this is his first NAB, because this is usually like pilot season. So he came here to learn, and he hit the floor. And I told him, "Are you going to the outskirts of all the small booths?" And he says, "Yes, I am. And I found this, and I found that." I think learning, if you're going to stay in this industry, is the most important thing, because we were never, when we were busy, we were never afforded the luxury of like researching, learning new things, because it was so busy. It's probably really hard to be unemployed and to focus on learning something new or learning a bunch of new things, whether it's tools. Like, we work with editors. Why not learn to edit? Why not learn how to use the tools that your colleagues use? That makes you more proficient in terms of how you would manage those colleagues once work starts again. The other thing is create content. I have a lot of producer friends that are coming to me because they're seeing that like YouTube is the number one publishing platform. So they're interested in starting channels. So I'm starting a channel just to learn, just to essentially learn through trial and error. How do you get your content to be popular? What are the algorithms? There's 1,000 videos that can teach you how to do this or that. So creating content, like going to the other side, essentially, and seeing how the influencers do things is fascinating. And now I can parlay that to my friends and colleagues because I've actually done it whether you have your ass handed to you or you succeed, it's all part of the process.
Ramy, thank you for coming by and sharing your wisdom, and I hope things get better out there, right? I mean,
Same, and thank you for shining a light for as long as you have on our industry. I mean, the best time to really share and compare with, like you do with everyone, is now. So you can kind of get the bigger story, and it's not just melancholy, there's hope. You know, I think for the most part, Post has always been industrious. Like you said, we've gone through so much. This just seems to be like more pronounced than anyone would have ever thought, but we have stayed the course.
right. I can't remember the term, but it's sort of like adversity leads to innovation, which is sort of what you were saying. So hopefully that happens.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.